mistake. Made a mistake.
Oh, I know you're going to say the trees are paper mache. It's done with mirrors, the magic there.
Marvin Hamlish's collaborator, Howard Ashman, can afford a mistake even less than Hamlish. He's the lyricist, writer, and the director of Smile, and though he's had a hit musical off-Broadway, this is his first and maybe his only shot at the big time.
People having careers like mine just don't get to do this very often, and it's a gift to be able to do it.
Hey guys, it's another day with Slick, a better you. My name is Matt. Thanks again for tuning in today. As you've seen from the clip, today is Disney Day. Howard Ashman, I was a true fan of. It's coincidentally that the year he passed was also the same year I was born, and both from Baltimore. I'm a Baltimorean, and I'm happy today to have his sister Sarah Ashman joining me today. And let me bring her aboard.
Hello. Are you still in Baltimore, or where are you now?
Yes, okay. I'm still in Baltimore.
I miss Baltimore.
How you doing, Sarah?
Very well.
Yeah. So you guys were from Baltimore. Were y'all from downtown Baltimore, or
no? We were we were Baltimore County, right on the edge between the city and we're right where Liberty Heights became Liberty Road, if that if that means anything to you. But right on that line between city and county. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah. I know Liberty Road real well. I'm actually in the. It's probably changed a bit, or I don't know since you was last here. But I'm in the Windsor Mill Woodlawn.
Oh, okay.
Area.
Well, I went to Woodlawn Junior High School. Howard did not. I don't think he went to Woodlawn. But wow. I went to, I don't know, do you remember Woodmore Elementary School in that genre? We went to Woodmore, both of us. So, yeah.
That's where I went to. I went there in 4th grade. I didn't know that.
Really?
Yeah.
And we both graduated from Milford Mill. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah. My cousin and I got two buddies, Devin and Darrell. They graduated from Milford. I went to Woodlawn High School and Woodlawn Middle as well.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
But so I have very fond memories of the area, of the time, of our life there. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I knew we was connected, us and Howard, I knew.
Yeah.
So I normally ask all my guests this question. I just wanted to ask you as well. How have you and your family been holding up during the pandemic?
The hardest hit has been my mom, because she's in an assisted living. I moved her from Baltimore to New York to be closer to us. Mm-hmm. And it was shocking actually to see the change in her. She's 96, to see the change in her when she didn't have the regular visits and the interactions. Bingo. I mean, take bingo away from that woman, and it was amazing. But I'm happy to say that since life has gotten back to something like normal, she's come back too. And my husband and I are very lucky. We live about 20 miles north of the city. We live in an area that has lots of walking trails. We've taken a lot of advantage of that over the past couple of months. I find the hardest thing has been getting back into life, actually.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
So let me go back. Let me take it back with you. So I don't know how comfortable you are answering this, but I was going to ask you. So were you or Howard the oldest?
Oh, I'm perfectly comfortable. I'm 3 years younger. I was born 3 years later after Howard. It's very odd when I hope you haven't had this experience, but when a sibling dies, and he was always my older brother, but he died at 40, and I'm significantly older. I will always think of him as my big brother. He would be 71 now, but it's a strange feeling. But I will always think as my big brother, even though he died much younger.
Yeah. It's interesting because Howard was so gifted, and I hope someday I can talk with Alan Menken, because I often wonder. I talked with Don Hahn a little while ago about I often wonder how theater or Disney or even movies would have been if Howard was still alive today, because he had so much work still to do. You know?
Oh, he did, and he had wonderful ideas. I don't like to play that game in public. I admit I played it in private. To what would he be doing, and what chances would he have taken, and
Yeah.
it would have been great. It would have been great fun. He was just beginning to really, well, the world was beginning to see him. Howard actually had always been Howard and was always creative. So you know,
Yeah.
but he was beginning to have the chance to do what he wanted to do.
Right. Did you also have an interest to write like Howard did for plays on it?
Howard started out in theater as opposed to writing, and we went to, actually he went, and then I followed him. I pretty much, as a kid sister, I followed him in everything. But there was a group called Children's Theater Association,
Right.
on Ploy Street in Baltimore, by a woman named Jerry Berger, started it, and it was brilliant. It was this wonderful, wonderful opportunity for so many Baltimore kids. At that time, because they didn't make little actors, they really tried to make little better people, and really the sense of empathy and that learning to feel like other people, which is what actors do. That's what their focus was. But Howard did that, and he fell in love with that. So he started out in theater, and he always seemed to be having such a good time that I had no choice but to try to follow him as well. So he had friends. He seemed to be having a great time. But you know, certainly, and yes, and I've done some writing as well. But he and I was an editor, so we both went into that world. But he was his own man, and I wouldn't dare to compete.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen Don's work on the Howard movie on Disney Plus, which I love. You know, I can see that over and over again. I really enjoyed it, and you know, I love hearing y'all story on growing up in Baltimore, and him telling stories to you and y'all was kids. I mean, he, even as a kid, I could see he had a big story imagination of bringing things to life and where his journey was going to go.
Absolutely. One thing I think about a lot is we used to, and he would do most of it, but Howard made up stories about all of us, and he made up stories about our families. So, you know, without getting into too personal things, but you know, it's like every person he met, he either gave them a story, or he wanted to get their story. But I think he was very much. He was just fascinated with people, and fascinated with and there, as I say, there was always a story being made up. So he would regale our friends as adults, right? We would hang out together, and he would regale our friends with these long, you know, Ashman family stories. And I only later realized everybody has long family stories, but Howard made them so freaking entertaining. Excuse me, but he made them so entertaining that that you know, I mean, and so by the time, even after Howard died, yeah, an Aunt Nettie, I had an Aunt Nettie, she's gone, but you know, friends would say, "God, remember Aunt Nettie?" And they didn't know Aunt Nettie, you know. But Howard would tell these stories. He was a great storyteller, a great storyteller.
Yeah, and you know, every detail about that movie, about his life in the early years. I mean, I enjoyed every minute of it. What was kind of your reaction when Don presented this idea to you? I mean, did you ever have an interest to tell Howard's story?
I had wanted and had pursued with the agency that represents Howard's work, trying to find someone to write a biography of Howard. And I actually, I don't know if you've ever seen the website, but his website, but I started that website because I wanted to blog about Howard. I was afraid at that time that people wouldn't know who Howard was. You know, he when he died, he wasn't all that well known. His life, his fame has had an odd trajectory. A lot of it has really been posthumous. And so I wanted to make sure his legacy stayed alive. Little did I know I probably didn't have to do all that. But I wanted somebody to write a biography, which I actually feel less passionate about now. And so when John suggested it, and I of course knew John, but when John suggested that he wanted to do that, I thought, yes. The only thing I wanted to make sure of, and John was really wonderful about this, is that I didn't want it to be Howard Ashman, the Disney guy. I wanted the full person to come through, or the AIDS victim, because Howard was more than a man who died of AIDS, and he was more than a Disney person.
Right.
And I think John did a really fine job of that. So my biggest concern he managed to overcome.
Absolutely. And and of course I have seen the website. I love it. The one thing I also enjoyed, of course, was just everybody who talked about knowing Howard, you and of course Disney as well, but also Kyle, who had worked with Howard when he first got started, and because there's a lot about Howard, like many fans that I didn't know about.
Yeah. Nancy, parent in that, and she was Howard's really very best friend, but she was my age, and he met her. She was an undergraduate at Indiana University, and he was a graduate student there, also in theater. And he said to me, "You have to meet Nancy. You're going to love her. She's almost like a sister to me." And I was like, no one's like a sister to you. I am. And I was just took it immediately without meeting this woman, a total dislike to her. Well, P.S. she's my very closest friend. And I moved to New York, we were roommates for years, and we're still close. But so that was the other thing Howard did, is like he was a bit of a matchmaker. He would decide, you need to be friends with this person. This is the right person for you. I moved to New York because he told me to move to New York. Howard was a director in every way, including in our lives.
Right. I wanted to, what you were saying earlier, which also was great about you, Don, and others making the movie is, like you were saying earlier, it also shows the next generation who Howard was, because Howard died in 91, back in the early 90s. And today, and with plays and with YouTube and the medium, people can understand. I mean, of course, people like me know who Howard was. I grew up on Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid. I know the movie Little Shop of Horrors, but I didn't know much about the play. But it also shows who Howard was to a new generation, people who wanted to get into making something close like Little Shop or movies and storytelling in general, because I love Howard's words on making movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's wonderful. And the response that I get on Howard's Facebook page and whatever from people who just have discovered him through the movie, or they happen to be watching Beauty and the Beast on TV with their kids and saw his name and just thought, maybe check who is this? Or we'd hear about him in passing. And Alan, also speaking of Alan, he's always been really, really wonderful about making sure that Howard got his due in the work that was done, and I think that's helped as well. So he's Alan's been a wonderful partner.
Yeah, absolutely.
For Howard, and then for Bill and myself.
Yeah. One thing that I told Dawn about that was interesting was and I was going to ask you to share some light on this as well. As well as telling Howard's story. I knew about Bill, but I didn't know about Stewart. I saw the one picture of Howard and Stewart, but I didn't know like who he was.
He was also Baltimorean, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, could you share some insight about, I mean, I know it's in the movie, but about Stewart and Howard a bit, because I knew about Bill, but not about Stewart.
Right. I mean, Stewart was Howard's first love, and I think as hard as their break, they had a terrible, difficult breakup, but as difficult as that was, I think there always remained that affection for him. That was, your first love is first love. And Stewart was incredibly talented, as they talk about in the film. He was an incredibly talented guy. I think Garrison is where he came from. He was from the farther up than we were, but he was an imp. He was brilliant. He was a wonderful director. He was very funny, and he was self-destructive. And unfortunately, and Howard, when Howard falls, he falls hard. And he I think Howard wanted a family. I think Howard wanted to really have a marriage and a life. And I think that they kind of made that together in Indiana. And when they came to New York, it all kind of didn't stick. And
Right.
yeah, it was very hard. But it was very hard on all of us when they broke up, because I mean, I loved Stuart. Nancy loved Stuart. Stuart was just, wonderful and funny and warm, and he was a great guy.
Yeah.
And it was very, and he died in 1983. So early in the I definitely, that can't be right, but it's true.
Right.
I won't say which birthday it was, but because I remember the memorial was on a birthday of mine. I know he died in 1983. Yeah, he was a very, very early victim of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I like as well, like I said earlier, I know the movie Little Shop, but I've seen some clips of the play Little Shop.
Man, you got to see the show.
I want to see it. I definitely.
I'll do my plug, but the best production I've ever seen of it outside of the productions that Howard directed is in New York, and it's reopening September 21st. Let me get that in. But it's reopening, and it's off Broadway. It was originally off Broadway when Howard did it, and he always said it should be in a small, intimate theater. And this is a small, intimate theater, and the director, very much honored Howard without doing a total imitation. And it's interesting because there's another filmmaker, an animator I know, and he came up from New York to see it, and he said to me, "I didn't know there were so many other songs in Little Shop," because he only knew Little Shop from the movie, but there's all sorts of other songs and all sorts of other stuff in the show. So you definitely need to make an effort. Just saying.
I most definitely will. I've seen some interviews with Alan Menken when he talks about there was a lot of cut songs from Little Shop, or songs that was in the Broadway show that was not in the movie that he sung a few times, and I'm definitely like, I need to go.
Some of the songs, and they wrote basically a whole show that they threw out before they came up to the Little Shop that everyone sees. But it's a brilliant show. It really is a brilliant show, and I love the movie. And I love the movie because it introduced a lot of people to that show. But the show is just very special.
Yeah. Got a little plant going to feed me.
It's very special.
Now, of course, I know it a bit now, but the only play that Howard did, I didn't know much about until really the movie, and then the 60 Minutes piece that I shown earlier was Smile. I think that's the only play I didn't really know much about, but I know that that's something Howard did before The Little Mermaid.
Right. And that, again, the Baltimore connection. It premiered out of town. The only out of town production that he did was in Baltimore. At, I think it was the Mechanic at that time. It wasn't the Lyric. I think it was the Mechanic Theater. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and Smile's a wonderful show. I mean, I loved Smile, and it's hard to get focus on it. I think partially because people think Ashman-Menken, and it's not Menken. It's nothing wrong with Marvin Hamlish, but it's not Menken. It's not. I don't know. It's a harder show to do. It's a big show to do. Colleges and some high schools like it because it's a lot of girls. So and there's always more girls in the drama department than boys. So it has a lot of girls in it. But it's a good show. There was also a play, as I say, a straight play. There's no music in it that Howard wrote. The first thing he ever wrote, called The Confirmation, professionally ever wrote, called The Confirmation, that actually is about growing up in Baltimore.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't remember that being in the movie.
You know what? Don didn't go into it. It wasn't when he was writing music. It was when he first moved to New York. And Don kind of came to Don came to the show, to the film, and Howard's career in New York with the WPA and God bless you, Mr. Rosewater. But there was work before then, which one of them was The Confirmation. One of them was a show called, was a show that he only wrote the book for called Dream Stuff. So he was doing a lot of stuff in Baltimore, in New York. And he had some one-act plays. He was just so excited to be here. Not that we don't love Baltimore.
Hey, listen, it's all good, I done lost my train of thought since you said that. That's what I was going to ask you. So I know Disney is maybe considered the kid film and not really the adult film, but I was going to ask you, was there a song that or a moment you might have liked or seen if you've seen Little Mermaid or Beauty and the Beast?
No, I honestly not. I don't. I know the cut songs from Little Shop. I don't really know. I know a couple cut songs from Aladdin, but I don't really know the cut songs or any cut songs that I particularly would have wanted to do. I liked Howard's original treatment for Aladdin, but it's hard for me to say because I liked everything Howard wrote. So sometimes it's hard for me to be really to step away. But it's interesting what you said. One of the reasons I think that Mermaid and Beauty especially have stood the test of time, like all of the best, you go back to the really wonderful early Disney musicals, Bambi,
right.
that they're very adult. They're written for children, and there's always a chase scene or a slapstick or a woo, but there's also a very adult kind of tone in there. Howard, one of the things Howard was really big on is he never wrote down. He didn't write down to children or to his audience. So, he expected his audience to come up to him. He was a very smart guy, but it wasn't that he was being obnoxious. He was just, he was writing, as I say, he wrote to amuse himself to a certain extent, but he wrote what he thought worked, and he expected the audience to come along, and he helped them come along, and that's what worked. So my favorite example of that is in Beauty, when Gaston sings, I'm especially fond of expectorating. And I had to look up expectorating. I don't know what that is. And right. And then Disney, the animators brilliantly had him cough up and spit. So I was like, okay, now I know what expectorating is, which is kind of wonderful animation.
Right.
And so, but so many people would have said, you can't use that word in a children's movie because children don't know what that is, and they were absolutely right. And again, I didn't know what it was, but half the fish in the fluke, I don't know. The fluke is the Duke of Soul, right? Well, the children don't know what Duke of Soul means, right? I mean, but to certain adults, it kind of has it's a little moment. And one of to me, the best kind of moments in any creative piece is when you feel like you connected with that writer or that actor, and they know something and you know something, and there's this moment of you're in on it together. It's almost a good secret. And
right.
That's a lot of what I think is so kind of fun in Howard's work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see it a lot, especially in the movies or like the making of a movie, because I'm a big nerd. Like the movie ends, I watch the making of it all the time. So I actually got another clip of Howard right here for the fans to see. It's a clip of Howard working with Jody and him talking about Little Mermaid.
So really try to work with just the intensity. It's like it's about all that emotion and then not letting it off. Not letting it off, but having it here. When's it my turn? Wouldn't I love that stuff? Really, it's.
Am I still a little too loud?
You're great.
Oh, better.
You're great, but you are. It gets a little bright in here. What would I give if I could live out of these waters? The intensity is better than. What would I give is better than noise. Yeah, but they're not doing it from them. It's inner intensity.
So even
in almost every musical ever written,
there's a place, it's usually about the third song of the evening. Sometimes it's the second, sometimes it's the fourth, but it's quite early. And the leading lady usually sits down on something. Sometimes it's a tree stump in Brigadoon. Sometimes it's under the pillars of Covent Garden in My Fair Lady, or it's a trash can in Little Shop of Horrors. But the leading lady sits down on something and sings about what she wants in life. And the audience falls in love with her and then roots for her to get it for the rest of the night.
Yeah, that's one of many Howard moments I like seeing. I wish I actually said a while ago, I wish there was more interviews of Howard on YouTube to see him talking about.
Yeah, you know, again, he was not all that well known. He wasn't all that famous, and so and of course, YouTube didn't exist, right? So it would have had to have been broadcast television, or that, or what you're seeing. Then when that's the famous Disney lecture, and Disney would. They would have, I don't know if you know about this, but, you know, at least they used it back in the day, would invite all sorts of people. I think Charles Schultz, who wasn't an animator at all, but they'd invite all sorts of interesting, creative people in to kind of lecture the animators. And that's where all that comes from.
Right.
Other than that, I mean, John did an incredible job of researching. He found stuff I'd never seen, which is amazing. But yeah, who knew?
You know, so Sarah, what kind of music do you like? Are you like Howard? You like classical, or you know?
I'm Howard's sister, so I love musicals. I was raised. Our mom, as we talked about in the movie, was also a big musical lover. So we were raised on musicals. You know, I'm of a certain age, so I don't follow newer music anymore. I mean, probably the last new person I discovered was, you know, Bruce Springsteen. So it's pretty old, but really kind of sad. But I actually recently discovered jazz. I like jazz, but you know, but even jazz, a lot of it is earlier jazz. You know, is in big bands. So.
Okay, well, listen, I like jazz and I like Bruce too. You know.
Yeah. Probably you like some newer things than I, you know, and it's really funny. You tend to, I know I have friends my age who haven't aged out, but you tend to kind of go back to the music that meant something to you at a certain age, and I think that's what's happened with me. Yeah, Howard, as he got older, he decided he needed to know Wagner, the you know. The Wagner operas, and that was one of the last. But you know, he was not a classical music person before that. You know, it's just a matter of staying curious, which I guess I haven't. Oops. Yeah.
Hey, it's okay. Listen, I listen to the music from back in the day myself, you know, because like I said earlier, I was born in '91, so I'm a '90s baby and '80s.
Yeah.
Baby, and
but your back in the day and my back in the day are very different days.
I know. But I do have a lower feel for classical a bit. Disney's Fantasia was something that really took off for classical for me, you know, Tchaikovsky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was the point. I think that Disney was brilliant with that, just kind of bringing children, you know, again, that's another wonderful example of not talking down to children. Although he animated it, he expected them to get Stravinsky. I mean, you know, it was big expectations. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is a big question for you that I was going to ask you about. So I know that Don just did the movie on Howard, the documentary.
Mm-hmm.
But was there ever talk about doing the movie as far as finding an actor to play Howard and you and your parents and Stuart, Bill, Alan, and Howard, like that kind of movie?
Yeah, what's it called? A biopic?
Yeah.
Yes, we've gotten pitched on that from various people, including one fairly well-known producer. And it's basically an over my dead body moment. I cannot imagine it. If I could stop it, I will stop it. I couldn't stand to see my brother played by someone else. And the other thing is, when you do that, you it's one thing to do what Don did, which was, and even what Don did, it's basically Don Hahn's view of Howard Ashman, which was fine because Don Hahn, because I love Don, he had a very respectful view. But when you start going into a semi-fictionalization, or whatever you would call it, you have to make it into a drama. And once, we're watching the movie about Halston right now, right? Once you start making it into a drama, you have to throw in characters that aren't necessarily real characters because they're going to move the action forward. You're going to have to make something a more dramatic moment than it is. And it's funny. I'm watching a movie about Halston, and I feel like I'm learning about Halston. But I bet you Halston's family, if they're still around, whatever, may not at all feel that I'm learning anything about the man they knew and loved. So I'll watch it about other people, and if I can stop it, I would stop it.
Right.
The answer is no.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
So, like, is there anything currently you're working on today? I mean, what exactly is your work currently?
Well, my work is retired now. I was a comics editor when I was an actual person. In terms of Howard, there's one song that he wrote called Hundreds of Hats, or The Straw Boater's Rag. And it's about baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And as one of the people on his Facebook page said, it's a song about baseball as only a romantic gay man who had no interest in baseball would ever write, but he was told to write it because it was for a review. And it was with a composer named Jonathan Sheffer. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful song. I love that song. And I try to talk to every now and then. I'll bring it up with other various animators and producers and people that I would love to see that done as a short. So that's kind of my wish. And we have Bill and I established the Howard Ashman Trust for Theater Arts, which kind of got slowed down during COVID, but is something where we put our focus in and out of. Basically, it's just a family charity. Nobody but us contributes, but to basically encourage. I told you, children's theater and the CTA in Baltimore was so fundamental to Howard.
Right.
To encourage that sort of theater training, empathy training for children is a passion.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you or Howard or both of y'all? 'Cause I know y'all was in New York. Like, did y'all ever go to Radio City Music Hall and see a show there?
I don't know if he ever did. I've never been there.
Oh, okay.
Why?
Oh no, I was just curious because I know that's one of the biggest places in New York that people go to see a show, a live show, or award shows. Or...
No, actually, Bill and I went. Actually, the Grammys were there one year. We actually got to go. Again, Howard's nominated for something posthumously, but no, I mean, I moved to New York. Howard moved to New York to see live theater, and Radio City is this incredible asset and this wonderful part of New York, but it's basically about spectacle, which is different from theater. If you ask me, with my snob face on, with my nose up in the air. Sorry.
It's okay. It's interesting, like what you were saying, because the part I like in the movie that was kind of funny to me was you talked about how your dad and Howard was going fishing, and
yeah, my mom told that story.
Yeah, where they was like, Howard, are you having fun? And Howard said, no.
Yeah.
Any other moments that comes to mind when you hear Howard's name?
Not really. I think it's all been covered. I really do want to reiterate that if Howard created character, one of the characters he created was Baltimore. Baltimore famously and wonderfully has its own character, right?
Right.
Unlike I guess New York has its own too, but unlike many cities, you know, Baltimore is like its own thing. And it still has a great, I do love it. I mean, I don't want to move back, but it's a great city. It's a great town. And I think part of when you wrote to me when I saw where you were from, I thought, oh, okay, a Baltimore person. That's good. That's good. Yeah.
See,
yeah,
we connected.
you never know what's gonna work, but yeah. I think it's the hometown. I don't know if you know the song Mary Chapin Carpenter ever sang "My Hometown," but you know it's you know it has resonance. And Howard certainly, I don't like to speak Howard thought, Howard did, or what would Howard do now, but I do know that we shared a love of that town.
Right,
And
absolutely.
a desire to leave. So what are you gonna do?
It's okay. You know, I don't remember what flash drive I got it on. I forgot to tell you this in the email as well. Cause I shared it on my Facebook once a few years ago. I got a buddy of mine who lives in Owens Mills, Maryland, and he took me like somewhere behind. I forgot where we went, but I actually saw Howard's grave, and I took a picture of his.
Oh, in New York.
Tombstone.
No, I'm sorry. Right. No, he's buried at Hope Shalom Cemetery in Baltimore. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that and I was like, wow, this is, you know, Howard Ashman. Yeah.
I can't believe you found it because it's you know, everything, it's one of those cemeteries where everything's flat on the ground. It's hard to find.
I have no idea how he found it. He told me about it and we drove up there and I was like, wow. So I took a picture or two of it. It's in one of my flash drives, but yeah.
I know it's a very strange feeling. But I have heard from other people that people kind of I don't want to use the word pilgrimage, but people do go to visit, and it's a very strange feeling, really, and kind of wonderful, you know, because I think, you know, if you ever do it again, the Jewish thing is to leave a stone on the marker, leave a stone there.
I will, most definitely.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed talking with you. You know, I've always, you know, like I said, I was a fan of Howard's work. Just like Howard with me, I'm a writer. I've done some short films, and creatively in my mind, I've created a lot. Way back when I was in elementary school, I can remember being in class and in the back of my book, just writing ideas for a film or a series or something. And I've been doing it since 2014 or 15 when I was in college. And I just released a documentary a few weeks ago. So, but creatively, as far as telling the story, I've always looked up to what Howard did. And as well as with Disney, but also with, you know, Little Shop and Smile and God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater. And Howard was a genius, you know, and he, you know, yeah.
He's also a good guy.
Yeah.
Almost as important as being a genius. No, he was a wonderful man. And it was daily. But it's always wonderful talking about him with people, and I appreciate the chance to do that.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the chance for talking with you about this. And like I said, again, I love watching Howard's story on Disney Plus. I've seen it over and over and over again, and I never get bored with watching it. I did see last year when in the movie was played at the film festival and when Dawn and Alan and others were there. Were you amazed by the fan reaction of how well that movie is done?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the people who have sought out Howard's webpage, his Facebook page, whatever, fans, but people who have sought it out really based on that movie and to whom his story really resonates. People like you who are artists and who've always wanted to kind of go that route. And people who just, you know, I don't know, but it's not just the shows that he did. His story seems to resonate with people,
right? And
as a man, he does. So it's very gratifying.
Yeah, and you know, it's hard to find right words to describe it, but he was just a genius at heart. You know, I've often wondered if Howard were to run for president of the United States.
You wouldn't have wanted that.
Well, Sarah, thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. I enjoyed your company and talking about Howard with you. Is there any last minute comments to say to the fans, anybody that's watching that's fans of Howard?
No, it's been a great pleasure meeting you and talking with you, and I enjoyed the opportunity.
Thank you. Thanks again for coming out talking with me today, and God bless you and your family, and to Howard's. I always think Howard's spirit is around with everybody creatively, even today. That
I hope so.
Yeah, I believe that.
Take care of yourself. Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Let me see that.
Hi, Lee Studio.
Well, guys, thanks for tuning in today for PE Slick Park. I'm sorry. Thanks again for tuning in today for Slick, A Better You. I've enjoyed talking with Sarah, reminiscing about Howard, and it was a blast just creatively learning how to create and spread your wings all over the place. And thanks again for watching my channel. I have more to come. Until next time, have a blessed one. Bye-bye.